What happens when the villain is right by Scrawls?
Wait, no. Heroes are supposed to be right.
Yeah, you're right.
Right?
Heroes are supposed to be the one defending the evil, right?
In every adventure cartoon and shonen anime, the protagonists take on heroic traits. They protect the weak, uplift their friends, and save the world. All goals shaped in contrast to those of a villain. Yet when I look back at the stories that I love, I can't help but be drawn to that villain. In college, I'm reading Beowulf, an Old Norse myth that is a foundation of Western storytelling, in which a hero, Beowulf, kills a villain, Grendel. Yet despite Beowulf being the hero, I can't help but feel pity for Grendel. He's a monstrous, ogre-like murdering giant compared to a demon, but he has a mother who mourns him. Villains are supposed to be evil, terrifying, and wrong. But what happens when villains are more human than that? What happens when the heroes falter, stumble, or sin? What happens when the societies that heroes defend are the ones that create villains? What happens when the villain is right?
What do y'all think happens, chat? Oh, wait, that's Aura right there. What do y'all think happens, chat? I don't really know. The villain doesn't get rewarded even though they're right.
Villains. What happens when the villain is right?
Aura!
Tai Lung, Silco, and even Dr. Doofenshmirtz.
No, Dr. Doofenshmirtz was honestly the biggest W in the whole entire world. Like, bro, I don't see anything wrong with what Dr. Doofenshmirtz was doing at all. Do y'all know where I'm coming from, right? I don't see anything wrong that Dr. Doofenshmirtz I don't see anything wrong that Dr. Doofenshmirtz was doing, chat. Y'all know who Dr. Schwartz, Konnichiwa, minasan, konnichiwa, Schwartz, cha 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 cha, cha 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 cha, cha 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 cha.
Are all answers to this question. So sit back and join me as we explore the world of villains.
Aura! Spoiler warning. Chat, here are the spoiler warnings. Puss in Boots, Castlevania TV shows, Kung Fu Panda, Arcane Season 1, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Grendel.
You are being hunted. This villain is chasing you right now. In fact, it's hunting all of us. A slow, terrifying hunt. This is the price of mortality. A price that Puss in Boots cannot accept. In doing so, he invites the first villain of this video to prove the hero wrong. In some stories, villains aren't mortal agents of evil, but instead forces of nature and the universe itself, attempting to undo the injustice the hero has created. Forces like death. You know it, you love it. Sometimes it's portrayed as a peaceful shepherd of souls, and other times, well, it becomes something out of a slasher film. In Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, Puss faces death, not metaphorically or figuratively or rhetorically, just death himself. In this case, Puss is the character who has sinned. Even though he's a hero, he's indulged in pleasures in each of his 9 lives, living recklessly until he realizes he's on his last one. And Death decides to end this kitty once and for all. Death is right. Puss has taken his lives for granted. Death's hunt of El Gato can be seen as an extension of the cycle of life and death. Puss has overstayed, thus someone must eliminate him. Yet I would argue that Death is still a villain, not just an antagonist. He's not a completely neutral arbiter. If he were, wouldn't he have just simply ended Puss's life? Despite the underlying moral justice, Death relishes in the fear he causes Puss. Death personified is cackling and playful. He drives Puss into corners.
You could actually
Death personified is cackling and playful.
You could actually see that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You could check. You could actually see that person who's actually has used up all his 9 lives and actually on his 10 life when he should have got on the nice one. That's why Death is going after him in the movie. Right, chat? Right, chat? Be honest with me. Is that really true, chat? Like, be honest with me. I don't really know, chat, because I don't. Yeah?
Drives Puss into corners, mocks him, brings on anxiety attacks and dread, gaining a sick kind of pleasure in enacting revenge. To me, this is villainous. It's only when Puss learns his lesson that Death stops. When Puss accepts his mortality and faces his fear, Death stops his attack, disappointed that his prey has ended their game of cat and wolf. Death is averted, but to return another day. Death comes for all of us, and in that, he's completely correct. In Beowulf, when the Nordic warrior kills Grendel's mother, and
what's Beowulf? What's Beowulf?
The dragon, are we supposed to bat an eye? The modern idea of a hero and their adventures is so deeply influenced by Beowulf, and so the modern day villain must draw from Grendel, right? Grendel, said to be the descendant of Cain, the Bible's first murderer, is clearly supposed to be evil. He attacks a mead hall every night, murdering people in their sleep because he hates the noise of its revelry and celebration. And of course, that's terrible, about as monstrous as you can get. But I remember laying in my own college dorm room at night, trying to get some shut-eye for my exam the next morning, when the neighbor next door decides it's finally time to party, blaring music until 4 a.m. Is it wrong to want peace? Does Grendel like death?
No, I don't really think it's wrong to have peace. Like, have you ever been like trying to go to sleep and then you have like something very important on once in a while, and then like the person next door actually like starts partying all the way until 8 p.m. 8 a.m. so you cannot go to sleep at all, and then you fail your exam. You know what I'm saying, chat?
Simply want the humans to stop their prideful celebrations? But even when Death stoops down to follow more human-like impulses, his wrath is focused on one person alone. On the other hand, a character like Castlevania's Dracula
You're mine! You're mine!
human-like impulses drive him to ascend into being a force of nature, one that is apocalyptic. Some villains begin with heartbreakingly human intentions. We've all loved before, and in Castlevania, Dracula is no different. In this Netflix adaptation, Dracula has a human wife named Lisa, a brilliant woman of science and sass, whom the humans accuse of witchcraft. Dracula, known to be a violent monster, had found domestic bliss with Lisa until she was burned at the stake by religious leaders. Dracula took this one action as justification of the evils of all mankind. What was seeded in love grew into loss and exploded into something sick and massive. Dracula's plan to destroy all humans with a plague of hellish retribution.
What? Chat, is that Aura? I'm just brain rot. Sorry, chat.
Armies of monsters across the land. If humans could hurt and unjustly punish someone as pure as Lisa, should they be allowed to thrive? Any one of them could have stopped it, Dracula says. Like the angry god of the Old Testament, Dracula seeks to cleanse the world. But unlike a god, however, Dracula's efforts are haphazard, grotesque, and disorderly. Instead of that biblical flood of ocean, Wallachia is drowned in senseless seas of blood. The other vampires fighting alongside him even wish that his attacks are more orderly, more militaristic. But Dracula doesn't care. He falls into a strange depression, with nothing left inside of him but human grief and demonic rage. It's wrong to kill an innocent. That's something baked into basic morality. And it's right to mourn those we lose. But while a hero may hunt only those who lead the witch hunt against Lisa, a villain takes this moral failure and uses it to wipe out everyone, perpetuating an endless cycle of violence. Coming back to Grendel, there's a part of me that feels even more pity for his mother. While Grendel and his mother are monsters, they only had each other, exiles on the edge of human civilization. Beneath that villainous expression of violence, these creatures cling to things that we all do. Community, family, love. And when Grendel dies, the only one who mourns for him is his mother, who lashes out towards the men who killed her son. Is it wrong to mourn those you loved? One of the surest ways to create a villain is to revoke that love from them. It's basically a cliche at this point. Villains aren't born, they're made. But in Tai Lung's case, it bears truth. The villain of the first Kung Fu Panda movie is Tai Lung, a savage martial artist.
Chat, y'all know chat, do y'all know chat, do y'all know Brawlhalla, right? Brawlhalla had like a Kung Fu Panda crossover, bro. Tai Lung is now Mordex, now every single Mordex user like uses Tai Lung. And it's actually like annoying because most of them are swords, but most of them are actually trash because I'm better than everyone in the whole entire chat. I'm literally better than everyone in this whole entire chat video games. I'm not even trolling with you. I'm literally like Diamond 1 and everything. I'm literally Grandmaster and everything. I'm literally Radiant and Valorant.
Artist who was once a child prodigy raised by Master Shifu. Master Shifu adopted the orphan, raised him, trained him, and loved him as if he was his own child, and as if he was destined to become the Dragon Warrior. Tai Lung himself was also exceptionally talented at fighting, mastering all 1,000 scrolls of Kung Fu. But despite Tai Lung's talent, Master Oogway saw only ambition and rage in the young warrior. Master Oogway denied the role of Dragon Warrior to Tai Lung, but Shifu, his master, essentially his father, did nothing, said nothing on his son's behalf. And just like that, Tai Lung, his entire life changed. He took this as betrayal and used his martial arts skills to destroy. He would go on to ravage the Valley of Peace, then be imprisoned for 20 years in a prison built by Oogway that had its construction overseen by the one person who had shown Tai Lung love. No wonder that when he broke out, he sought out to unleash his rage, hunting the new Dragon Warrior, a certain panda. I think there's a whole movie about that, actually. He said that it had been Shifu who filled his head with dreams and drove him to train until his bones broke. Shifu had tried to build a hero out of an outsider, but when that title was denied to Tai Lung, the spark of family was snuffed out when he did nothing to help his son. Tai Lung had nothing but his father and Kung Fu, so when one of those abandoned him, what did he have left? His father and the community around Kung Fu locked him away. In some ways, the heroes of the world were proving Tai Lung's spite right. Rather than try to sympathize with him, rehabilitate him, or find a new pathway for him besides being the Dragon Warrior, he was left to rot. Would imprisoning Grendel instead of killing him be any better?
No.
Would exiling his mother do any good but further her rage? Maybe when villains like Tai Lung are right, they expose something cruel in our idols. Fathers, masters, gods, and kings should not go by unquestioned. Villains have the courage to show us the cracks in things like love and tradition. They force us to reconsider the forces we claim to be good. But Tai Lung's violence is still cruel. His pride is still wrong. Like a toddler throwing a tantrum, he seeks attention in the most destructive of ways. For instead of hunting a person or people, why not target a system?
Who's that, chat? Who targets the system? Batman targets the system. Wait, do I have a Batman mask? I don't. Batman!
Imagine a city of light and progress, a whimsical steampunk metropolis. Sounds perfect, right?
Yeah.
Just forget the part about this being from League of Legends and you'll be fine. But this utopia is built on top an underground of both lawlessness and community, darkness and the most scarred forms of hope. In the noxious fumes below, children play without care, while topsiders who venture down must wear masks, unaccustomed to the smog they've created themselves. This is the world of Arcane, and it's very easy to see the disparity between Piltover and its undercity, sometimes called Zaun. But few people work to change this injustice when they spot it. Few people are like Silco. Growing up in the Undercity, Vander and Silco faced the slums like brothers until Vander betrayed Silco for some reason, leaving Silco scarred and vengeful. Silco grew into a ruthless chem baron who went to dangerous lengths to control others in the Undercity and expand his drug empire. And eventually when Vander was taken out of the equation, Silco took over more formally. Later on, Silco even made a deal with Piltover, arguing for the Undercity to be liberated as the free nation of Zaun. And surprisingly, they began to listen to Silco. As violence between the two states grew, the disparity could not be denied any longer. The Undercity was being discriminated against and overwhelmed by the effects of pollution, drug abuse, and apathy. But the Undercity was its own being by now. It could not continue to be dragged around and manipulated by Piltover. At the end of the first season, the Council of Piltover gathered to plan this new change.
Have you ever watched? Have you ever watched Arcane? Because I'm never watching that junk. Arcane sucks and it always sucks. I mean, like, I'm not even trolling with you. Arcane, like, it's League of Legends. League of Legends is not even that good. League of Legends is just a game that's like made for you to like be mad. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying, chat?
See that when the villain is right, sometimes change must happen. But as much as Silco pushed for a free nation of Zon, and the council almost let it happen, other dominoes were knocked over. A certain blue-haired girl named Jinx, raised by Silco, chose to kill him, and then
Wait,
she let
she's
her
from? Isn't she from League of Legends, chat?
destructive impulses free, unleashing devastation. And now Zon's independence is still up in the air until we find out what happens next in Season 2. Silco represents not just rage at Vander, an individual, but a larger societal anger with a clear injustice in front of him. Why should his people suffer while topsiders live so peacefully? Why must society damn those below? But in the end, it's another form of betrayal that comes and ends him. In Beowulf, the Nordic tradition is about strength. In King Hrothgar's, goodness is measured by his capability to conquer.
They killed cows, they killed horses, they killed each other.
When Grendel attacks Hrothgar's
That was pretty weird how they
Nidhogg,
laughed.
is he not just a reflection of the society's violence?
I began to be more amused than frightened by them.
I think it's the role of the villain to force change in a society and to hold a mirror to the madness that is often overlooked. But what happens when a society traps a villain in this madness and laughs? Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz is comically, aggressively, and kind of paradoxically
He's the best villain. I'm not even joking with you. He's honestly like the best villain.
evil and pathetic. He lives in a tower creating crazy weapons, fighting a secret agent every day, and he even has his own jingle. Dr. Doof's backstory
Dr. Deuce, Evil Incorporated. Dude, that song goes crazy.
Also filled to the brim with some of the most tragic and comically tragic moments. Growing up, he was forced by his father to be a garden gnome. His mother failed to love him because he was bad at kickball. Apparently, his two parents weren't even there to show up at his birth. His life
How is that even possible,
to
chat?
a cartoonish.
Wait, how's that even possible?
His two parents weren't even there to show up at his birth. His life is driven to a cartoonish extreme because, well, he's a cartoon. And in the series Phineas and Ferb, his everyday life becomes a kind of loop. Something in his everyday life inconveniences him, such as being insecure about a squeaky voice, or wanting to give his teenage daughter a nice birthday surprise. Then he creates something over the top to deal with this problem. Perry the Platypus stops him, and it blows up in his face, quite literally. As funny as he is, this loop also seems kind of like Sisyphus, the old Greek myth of the guy who had to push the boulder up and up, but only for it to fall over and over. Doof is trapped in the society of inconveniences, people who laugh at his viral fail videos online or disrespect him in the smallest of ways. He's stuck, constantly trying to improve his life but finding a new issue in his way. He's just like me for real. And his overzealous, crazed ability to create dramatic giant machines to deal with every little problem comes from a very human place, wanting to be respected, wanting to be happy, and wanting to make those he cares about safe and happy. We laugh at him not because he's completely wrong, but the ways he tries to solve his everyday issues are blown so far out of proportion. We get the satisfaction of seeing them bite him back in the butt, but there's kind of a catharsis in seeing that. Maybe because it reminds us of our own lives, being stuck in a loop, episode after episode, problem after problem, knowing that no matter what he tries, he'll try again next time. Is that so evil? Beowulf is a story that was initially passed down by oral tradition.
That made me think. Dr. Doofenshmirtz is low-key a good example of why you gotta keep on trying, you know what I'm saying? He kept on trying over and over, even though he might succeed, even though he knows he might not succeed. Still has that idea to be like, maybe I'll succeed this time, you know? And that's what I do too. That's what a bunch of people is doing. That's what a bunch of people is doing right now at this current moment. They keep on trying stuff that most people say it's not gonna work out. And that's deep. For the chance for it to work out. Wow. That's actually
People would memorize
good.
the poem they heard, then perform it for the next generation. But then it was documented and written down and turned into countless adaptations. It's inspired the fabric of nearly all Western hero stories. It's even one of the key inspirations for The Lord of the Rings. Over and over, the story is told, and over, Grendel is killed. Through the art form of storytelling, like Doofenshmirtz, he is doomed to repeat his mistakes. Is that madness? Or is that just life? What does it look like when a villain tries to control the madness of reality, fighting to protect stability, but doing so through violent, often at times overpowering ways? Look no further than the one and only Spider-Man, 2099. Technically, you might argue that Miguel O'Hara isn't a villain. He's not
That's
evil
true.
like Green Goblin or the Spot, he's just an antagonist. One that opposes the protagonist, Miles Morales. And with that, I honestly agree. He inhabits a more gray space of somewhere from antagonist to anti-hero to villain. But at the same time, look at this guy. He's got vampire fangs. What, that's a villain right there. Okay, fine. He's not a clear-cut villain.
Dude, he's not a villain because wasn't he like, what is it called? Wasn't he like trying to stop Miles because he's actually an anomaly not supposed to exist? Like he's trying to save the whole entire universe instead of having the whole entire universe destroyed because of Miles wanting to like go out of his country, go out of his world and stuff. It's like it's not wrong for Miles to exist, but the thing about Miles, he has to remain in his world, or else the whole entire universe is gonna collapse. You know what I'm saying?
He's an antagonist with both heroic intentions and some villainous traits.
Yeah.
Miguel is a Spider-Man that lost his entire dimension, and in this grief he becomes paranoid. He's a Spider-Man who doesn't quip, amassing an army of different spider people and pigs and horses and trying to control the great web of the multiverse. He surveys it all, trying to make sure that the canon events happen and that order remains in balance. But in doing so, Miguel allows people to die. Canon events can entail horrific tragedies that must happen in order to maintain the universe's stability. What other choice does he have but to become villainous in order to save everyone? From the perspective of Miles Morales, it's easy to see Miguel as a villain. He represents a darker Spider-Man who has seemingly given up on saving certain people. And when it's discovered that Miles may be an anomaly, Miguel ruthlessly traps him, trying to prevent him from saving his father from another villain. Is it the hero or the villain who should decide the fate of others? The webs of hero, anti-hero, and villain all become blurred. Miguel is right to try to save the universe, but is it right to let another Ben die over and over? Is it right to watch Gwen Stacy fall to her doom 100 times over and not do anything? At what point does it become too much? At what point does he become a true villain? Out of the different depictions of Beowulf, there's a book by John Gardner that follows Grendel's perspective instead. And based on that book, there's a 1981 animated film called Grendel, Grendel, Grendel. They have similarities and differences, but in the end, they give the villain of the story the main perspective, and we as the audience can't help but empathize with him. He's still a murderer. He revels in attacking the men of Hrothgar's mead hall. But the simple act of following him rather than Beowulf exposes his loneliness, his curiosity, and his humanity. Would Miles Morales become the villain if we followed Miguel's perspective? Heroes or villains, monsters or humans, right or wrong? In this video, I've asked a lot of questions. Believe me, I wish I had more answers, man. But maybe that's the point of a villain being right. When someone supposedly evil has a point, then we question our own ideas of good. Villains reflect the injustices of society, giving us a lens to view our world and notice the darkness and the light. But through the extreme actions they take on, heroes are dragged into the fray. Innocents get hurt. In the game of hero and villain chess, the hero has 3 moves to respond to the villain's moral check. The first is to deny that the villain was right, to find another way. In Spider-Verse, Miles runs from Miguel, zooming on his way to find his father, rejecting the idea that all is lost, that people must die to be Spider-Man. Whether this is right or wrong, the villain moves the hero to act and to figure out their own peace.
That's all.
Whether this
Wait.
is right or wrong, the
Nah,
villain moves
I'ma
the
do
hero
my
to
own
act and to
thing.
figure out their own truth. The second is for the hero to accept that they were wrong. Puss in Boots realizes that he needs to value his last life instead of recklessly wishing for the next. And the third and final way is somewhere in between. It is to listen to the villain and to try to teach them, to engage in a conversation and show them mercy. This is when the hero believes in both the good and the bad of their world. They try to come to an understanding between the flaws that the villain sees in the world and the goodness the hero knows still remains. In the comment section of the YouTube video on Grendel, 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 there's a comment that says that Peter Ustinov, the voice of Grendel, said that this film was a tribute to monsters who, after all, are doing their job, keeping us on our toes. I think this bears truth. Monsters and villains, all alike, force us to stay vigilant and to reconsider what we know. They keep us on our toes. At the end of the film, after watching this bumbling mama's boy ogre observe humans, he enters the mead hall one last time, meeting his doom. Beowulf has arrived, and he manages to pull Grendel's arm off. Grendel begins to die. He stumbles outside, and we watch him lie there alone, calling for his mother. When I see this villain there alone, I can't help but feel sad. I don't think we should let Grendel devour more folks or evil scientists take over the tri-state area, but they do deserve something. They deserve to at least have someone to give them a chance and to listen to them. For it is an awful thing to die alone.
Poor Grendel's had an accident.
I wanted to make a different kind of video, one that's a little bit more chill, a little bit more like the video essays I like to watch. So I hope you enjoyed. Take care. Thank you, thank you, thank you for watching. This has been Scrawls.
BPD.
Chat, that was deep. Chat, that was a really good video.